Coming! Hey, come on in. We were waiting for you. I'm glad you came.
Hey, it's good to see you. Do you want some knee? All right then. Go ahead and have a seat.
All right, thanks for coming.
Yeah, I was just checking out the newspaper there for a little bit. Looks like they're having buffalo butcherings here in our community.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Hey, so I got a phone call saying that you wanted to visit a bit.
So we just thought, come on over and we'll drink some coffee and talk.
Yep.
So what was the call about? What are we talking about?
So I think what we were talking about was conversation, right? So we were talking about conversation and what does that mean? And, the importance of having conversation, I guess. So I guess that's what we're talking about today.
Oh, okay.
So my name is Lisa Mani. I'm Oglala from Pine Ridge.
Hello, I'm Arlo. Ironclad. I'm Oglala and Dene from New Mexico.
Yep. So anyway, I figured I'll think about this for a bit and see what that meant about conversations and why it's important that we have conversations.
I think communications is one of the most vital things, I think. What about you?
I think that communication is pretty vital just because, like, our relatives really depended on our relatives, our ancestors, really depended on communication and having good communication skills with one another. So thinking about that, like our families today, do you think we have good communication skills?
Not today.
Not today.
No, I don't think. Do you think we had them today?
Do I think it? Do I think we have good communication skills?
Yeah.
No, we don't. I don't think we do. Mainly because, like a lot of people that were born in my time, probably didn't have good communication skills with their parents. I think.
What did that look like? Like communication for you growing up?
For me?
Yeah.
I think the communication in my family was completely one-sided. I think that I knew more about my parents than they knew about me. I don't think our communication skills were there.
What did you hope for? Like if you wanted to say that communications were a good thing, like even for you, what is having good communications with your relative look and feel like?
Well, I think that I was looking at your lips and they're kind of dry, so I think you better drink that. It has ice in it too. So I think that having communication is vital, like you were saying before. But if we look at our history and we look at our ancestors and we learn that they traveled from point A to point B, and there was like a lot of miles in between those two distances, that communication was essential. Like everybody had to learn how to be able to communicate with each other so that they could get from point A to point B successfully.
Can you imagine that? Having to coordinate 30 plus people?
Heck no, man. I think that we're a family of
Four
four.
right now.
That's hard.
I mean, we have our boys, but yeah, I mean, communicating inside the family is one of the most difficult things that I'm sure you've encountered that too. But going back and looking at our ancestors, communication meant survival, right?
Yeah, it definitely did. Because we basically had to be on the same page.
Right.
So we had to be in a very similar headspace. Not the same. I don't say the same because everybody's different. Everybody perceives things differently. But we had an understanding that we needed each other in order to get from point A to point B, or to get a task done, like setting up our homes. We had to learn how to work together so that we could achieve that. And that was priority. So being able to like discuss maybe arguments, because those happen, frustrations, maybe somebody played telephone and got some communication mixed up there. You know what I mean?
When you move like that too, how do you think that they had consensus? How did they agree on stuff?
That is a good question.
Nobody really knows, right? Do you know?
Like, naturally, how were we?
Yeah.
Because now we're looking back in a world that is not natural for us. I think living on the reservation, you have the greatest ability to understand who we were naturally, because a lot of our land is still natural. Not very much of it, but a lot of it is. So being able to understand who we are naturally, we would probably have to go way, way back.
Right. And I would like to think that it also reflects on nature. I would like to think that our relationship with one another really reflected on the world around us. Do you think it was like that?
I think so. Because if you look at it now, plants, their roots, mycelium, like with the mushrooms, all underground, communicating with each other. Because there's a lot of relationships out there that we don't understand are going on, just because we may be disconnected. We can get reconnected, but because of that disconnection, we don't understand that some mushrooms need some trees and they respond to each other. They're able to communicate with each other. Or in certain areas where some trees will grow and others will hold themselves back and they won't grow, just because they know that they either take turns, or this environment is not going to sustain us, so we'll allow those step back and allow those that can be sustained in this environment live.
Do you ever look at ants, or do you ever look at ants? Ants are a really good example to reflect on whenever you're trying to work as like an organization or a group or a family. I didn't mean to say like an organization. I don't know why. Sorry, but like family. Yeah. You want some popcorn? Good. Yeah. My son Louis made that. Yeah. So like you look at ants, they build these compared to their size. They have these pyramids, they're little bitty things, but they all work together in order to accomplish some amazing things, as small as they are.
As small as they are. Because you see those videos where when it floods, they'll form a ball and then they'll float.
Yeah, they figure it out together.
Yep.
And our ancestors, our relatives, looked at them as an example on how to be toward one another. Can you imagine that without being told, knock it off, stop doing that? No, none of that, but more guided.
More guided. Yep. And I think that that's where communication, being able to communicate with each other, is really important. Because if somebody took the time to be able to understand how you are, and then you do the same thing, you reciprocate that, you will have this understanding like, well, I'm not going to do that because that is not comfortable for him, and then vice versa.
That is, imagine having somebody that you know so well because of communication.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yep.
Imagine having somebody like you duplicated, ready to go.
Yep.
The possibilities are endless. Have you ever said to yourself, man, I wish there were 2 of me or 3 of me? Imagine having that.
Imagine having that, where you guys are so like in sync because you know a lot about each other. Because you know that you guys want something and you're going to work toward it. So that's the only thing I can say. So, okay, so we're talking about this, working together, and then, being more successful as a group of people, who we naturally are. We were supposed to be together in large groups of people, our Tioshbayes, which consisted of a lot of people. And that is how we were naturally. So being singular, having one parent or two parents with the kids, and no grandparents or no aunties or uncles living with you is not our way naturally. So thinking on that, how did that disconnect us from that ability to communicate because people are thinking more singularly and not we're in a group? You know what I mean? So growing up with that disconnection and not having that ability to learn how to communicate, how would you explain, to them how to get started on maybe learning how to communicate?
What do you think? Well, I'll tell you what I think. Just based on how to communicate, having conversation, like communication is just having conversation. Even if it sounds stupid or if it sounds redundant or my
Redundant. This guy.
I know, I'm
Big old words.
big old words. But like,
Anyway.
yeah, I mean, a lot of us sometimes don't want to engage in these conversations, but you need to have them. It's important to talk. And that's one thing that we always share with our children is that you need to talk. And you say that often to them.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because it's really important that we know each other. I think if you need like motivation or want to have an idea, think about our ancestors and how they were able to pick up and move from one point to another point, like Canada down to Denver, or Montana to Wisconsin, or Minnesota, being able to communicate with each other well enough where you're going to get there and people know you're going to get there because they know that you guys are able to work together so well, So learning about like communication through our history kind of gives you an idea of this is what I'm looking for then. Because if I'm able to communicate with you and I'm able to communicate with you, just think of how much more binded we are, I guess, more community minded. And it would encourage us to want to talk to each other more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I want to share in that same breath is that we're all learning here.
Yep.
We're not talking to you from a perspective that we have all the answers. We're just sharing what we know.
We're just sharing what we know. So, and we're learning too. And I really encourage you guys to look into our history. We were some amazing people to be able to communicate not only with each other, but with our plants and then the animals and the soil, the birds, all of that. We had that ability to communicate in that way. Just think about that. You bring that and you put it inside of your home. What would that create?
Yeah, what will that create?
Yeah. So, but it's baby steps. You have to take baby steps. With anything, you're nervous. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to do this right. But do it. That's the best thing you can do is do it. A lot of times, that's how we learn, is to experience it. And if it doesn't work, well, now you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yep.
I agree with you.
Yep. So I have a lot of faith in you guys. I really think that, practicing communication is really important. Understanding our history is another too, because when you look back, you're just going to see how awesome we were as people, as Lakotas.
Yeah, so be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself, and do your best to try and communicate.
Yeah. So I agree. It's really important that you tell yourself, I'm learning. That's like the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is I am learning. But just imagine, you guys, what would that look like if we were able to just sit there and communicate with each other in a way that we understand each other? So, something to think about.
Oh, you gotta go?
All right, then.
Oh, okay. Well, it
Well,
was nice visiting with you.
yes, you got to come back again, visit us again, and we'll probably get you something other than popcorn.
Come on, I'll walk you up.
All right. You travel safe, okay? Doksha.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. Have a good, have a good, safe trip. Doksha.